From Lordship to Paradise Green, Stratford listens to Melissa in the Morning on WICC 600 AM and 107.3 FM.
So as a lot of you know, my father, my husband, my brother, they are all health insurance brokers. So I've heard this scenario many times before. Imagine you and a neighbor both need to get a CAT scan. And when you go, you both have commercial health insurance. You go to the same hospital for that procedure, but the price for your scan is 10 times higher than your neighbor's. What in the world happened? Why is there price disparity? And this is pretty common, actually, in today's world. So to get some perspective on this, I thought it'd be a great time to have Paul Seegert back on the show. Paul actually is a managing partner at PCS Advisors, which is a health benefits consulting firm with 35 partner offices across the U.S. Good morning, Paul. Welcome back to the show. How are you?
I'm great. Good morning.
So tell us, Paul, first of all, why does this happen? And also, how common is it that we see such a price gap between two individuals, but with similar backgrounds, if you will, with similar resumes when they go to the hospital?
Right. Oh, it's happening every day in just about every facility across America. It's not uncommon, and the transparency rule for hospitals started to put some spotlight on this. We don't really have very good compliance yet with that rule, which is an interesting conversation in and of itself, but they're not eager to broadcast to consumers or employers who run health plans that it's not uncommon that they might have more than 150 prices for any given procedure.
Why? First of all, has it always been that way? Has this gotten worse over time?
I'd say it's gotten worse over time as the insurance payment model has become more front and center. So as insurance has become really the way that people access healthcare as opposed to cash, then insurers have gotten very good and providers have gotten very good at maximizing their revenue. So you could have, like you said, people show up at the same facility with a tenfold difference. Another interesting part of this whole thing is that if you show up at that same facility and say, hey, I'm a cash payer, it's not uncommon you would get an 80 to 85% discount.
You're
off
kidding.
Of what they would charge your insurance plan. Yeah. So
Whoa! Oh my gosh! The just how criminal this all sounds is crazy. But so why would a cash pay just because you're not dealing with the insurance company? Like why would that make such a huge discount? That's crazy.
Yeah. Well, because I think what you have there is a transaction that's more governed by free market forces, even though it represents a small percent of overall transactions that occur at those facilities. It's more of a free market transaction, and you as the consumer are paying that bill. And so they've got this price that's more in line with what you expect it should be. And then when you have insurance, we've got so many things going on that prevent the consumer from being able to consume well. And part of it is the fact that these health plans we've created over time have a share of cost that you bear as a consumer that has little to no relation to the actual cost of care. I was looking at a group in Texas, and you could go to 10 different locations to get a CT scan or an MRI. I think it was an MRI, actually, within about 25 miles of this employer. All in-network, contracted with Blue Cross Blue Shield of Texas, although it could be any insurer in any state. It's pretty much a normal practice. You as a consumer were going to pay $100, as that's what the plan said you would pay. That's your copay for that procedure if you go in-network. So a good consumer thinks, well, shoot, if I go to the website and I see these places are in-network, I should go to one of them. And you're assuming that the cost is probably similar across all of those locations. And the low-cost facility would charge the health plan $700, take your $100 copay, charge the plan $700. The high cost would charge the plan $7,000. And that all happens, unfortunately, pretty much invisibly behind the scenes as far as the consumer goes. So, and then we scratch our heads at renewal and say, why the heck are my premiums going up?
Right. So that's what a couple things I was going to get at. We're talking to Paul Seegert this morning, who's a managing partner at PCS Advisors, a health benefit consulting firm. So then a couple things then. Who's at fault here for the price gouging? Would it be the hospitals? It's got to be the hospitals, right?
Well, you have an interesting alliance between health plans and insurers who both do better when costs go up. Unfortunately, with the way that we changed the rules as to how insurance companies make their money 12 years ago with the Affordable Care Act, we pretty much put these insurers in a position where they're in a cost-plus model. The medical loss ratio rule that was part of that law said, hey, if they spend 80 or 85 cents for every dollar they take in premium on a claim, they get to keep the balance. So they do better when claims costs go up, and then we ask them to go negotiate how much we all are going to pay for things with the person that's going to sell the service. So not really the best way to align incentives.
I mean, it kind of makes people, Paul Seegert, not want to get insurance, which we're already dealing with that because it's so expensive.
Yeah, we are.
I mean, what's rough about this is I can't think of a plan. I mean, other than I do. I mean, obviously there are plans I guess I could think of that you have to qualify for, but insurance, no matter which way you slice and dice it, for most people is incredibly expensive. So it's really concerning that, you know, even if you and somebody else have a commercial insurance plan, that you could be charged totally differently, and yet you're already paying insane amounts of money to cover these kinds of things. Like it almost just seems backwards, which is why I'm sure a lot of people just don't invest in it anymore or don't try not to.
Well, and we've gotten it to a place where we're pricing out a lot of people, even pricing out a lot of smaller employers. Something that I watch is kind of just the big trends in the industry. 20 years ago, 67% of us got our health care at work. And part of the issue at play that we're discussing right now is the fact that this disparity in pricing, it's commercial payers more. They tend to pay more in this range for procedures when their people show up at a facility, and then you have Medicare and Medicaid people that show up, and the facilities usually lose money on those transactions. They're willing to do that because they know they're going to be able to charge these commercial payers more. But when you look at the fact that because of what you just described, we're down to right now. This year we fell below 50% of us now that get our health care at work. We're down to 49%. So you have this dwindling supply of commercial payers that are propping up the profitability of this whole system. And I know a lot of folks do math and say, shoot, if we had Medicare for all or Medicaid for all, the cost of health care would be a lot less. Well, that would be true if they covered their share of the cost of procedure, which they don't. The reason we lose rural hospitals at an alarming rate is because their payers are all Medicare, Medicaid, or uninsured, and they can't survive on those reimbursements.
We're talking to Paul Seegert this morning. Paul, do you mind just giving us a couple more minutes after we check on traffic and weather?
Sure.
Okay, hold on one second. We're going to come right back to Paul Seegert talking about this price disparity that we're seeing among many people across the country on a daily basis right here on WICC. Don't go away.
This is where Greenwich starts the day. Melissa in the Morning on WICC 600 AM and 107.3 FM.
Can you imagine going to get the same procedure done as a friend of yours, and you look at the bills and you're like, wait a second, yours was how much? Because mine was this much. How does that happen? So we've been chatting about this with Paul Seegert, who's been on the show before. He's a managing partner at PCS Advisors, a health benefits consulting firm with actually 35 partner offices across the nation. So here's the question we're kind of left with, Paul. What do you recommend individuals or even people who are part of companies to do? What are there certain questions they should be asking? Are there certain things they should be doing when they go to a hospital? Should they be doing things differently than they typically do? Like what do you suggest?
Well, if you're an individual in the marketplace and you're getting your own health care, your own health insurance, let's say, then there are other options out there. And I think this conversation we're having is part of the reason that medical cost sharing has exploded. And continues to grow at a rapid rate. As that allows these consumers to go present as a cash payer at facilities, get an 80 or 85% discount, and get reimbursed. So if you're not someone with chronic health conditions where you have a lot of ongoing care, maybe that's something worth considering. And then if you're an employer out there, you have to really work hard to get good information in your employees' hands and their families' hands there's obstacles to that, so they can consume well. There's obstacles to that, but a lot of states are starting to address them. I think your state had SB 416 that's kind of an ongoing conversation around getting rid of all or nothing and anti-steering clauses. These big hospital systems will, in their negotiations with an insurer, they'll say, well, we'll contract with you, but you have to contract all our facilities across our whole system.
Wow.
And then the other issue they'll say, which I think is more troublesome, is we'll contract with you, but you're not allowed, as a part of our contract, to incentivize members to go to our lower cost facilities versus our higher cost facilities. You basically have to hide that information from the consumer as part of their contracting process. So that hopefully we'll see that go away in your state. It has in a few already, which doesn't affect those for the most part in fully insured health plans, but the employers that are running alternatively funded plans then have a lot better ability, legally at least, to start to give consumers good information. Reward them through the design of that health plan. Hey, if you go to first we'll make it available to you, we'll give you the information. Here are the low-cost providers in your area who are also highly rated. And if you use one, we'll waive your out-of-pocket costs in your health plan. And when you see the disparity in cost can be 10x, that can be a really good proposition for all parties in the transaction. But we need to make it actually possible.
No, it's really interesting, and especially the timing of this conversation, because we are literally days away from the open enrollment process for anybody under the age of 65. We're in the midst, obviously, of Medicare, but certainly some really good points and some questions that people should be really keeping at the top of their head when they think to either re-enroll or change plans or whatever the case may be. So I appreciate you, Paul, for coming on the show and for really highlighting this for all of our listeners this morning. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. Talk to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, Paul Seegert comes on the show pretty often. Paul is a managing partner at PCS Advisors, which is a health benefits consulting firm with 35 partner offices across the nation.